property, moved in 2016 after living in Stony Brook since 1967. My younger brother is disabled and was legal adult dependent of my parents, and he lived with my parents and moved in with them. In 2017, my parents formed a family trust and a separate special needs trust, which left the property in its entirety to provide the care of my brother upon their passing. My mother passed in 2021, my father passed in 2022. I moved into the house to take care of the family part-time in 2019 and then full-time in 2020. I stayed to take care of my brother, and I paid more than half the household expenses, as his Social Security disability check and supplemental needs money is inadequate to maintain the level of expenses. The only other family we have are both elderly and in ill health. If something were to happen to me, like my best friend of 40 years that dropped dead of a heart attack at age 60, the house would have to be sold. My brother would live for the rest of his life on the proceeds of the sale. And if these variances are approved and the property value decreases, my brother would be directly and adversely affected. Thank you for your time. Please carefully consider the human costs and the implications of your decision.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Next person is James Collier, 20 Princess Street Court.
Absolutely. James Collier.
Mr. Collier, I'm just, if you wouldn't mind, I know it's a pain, but we need the microphone so that we can, I appreciate it. Thank you.
So thank you all for listening to all of us as we get up here. I'm at 21 Princess Street Court, Port Jefferson, New York, 11777. So I find it interesting that there's going to be financial impact. So if we were to put a 1,500 square foot office space, that would give us enough parking for that area. But if we put a 10 unit apartment complex with 14 spaces, that's going to be enough space to park all those cars for all those people who live there within 10 feet of the main road. That is hard enough at this point to see either right or left when you're exiting Princess Street Court. But now you want to put a variance of a building that is 3 stories tall from the back to the front, sitting literally on the road. I understand you said this is really about the variance, but when you look at the 4
About the use.
sorry, about the use, but when you look at the 4 variances, it's hard to say the use can actually be applied to this piece of property, this parcel of property. I am the president of the HOA. I am watching as the water erodes the back of this development. We are aware of it. We don't need help with it. We don't need to make sure that we're building something that will cause future erosion at a higher rate. If it was a 1,500 square foot unit that is professional, it makes sense. That's what's there. But to squeeze in a 10 unit apartment complex and half the space that's required by the town, I find problem with that. I think everyone in this room has problem with that. I think that's going to be a recurring theme we're going to hear over and over and over again, is the problem we're going to have with that. So this isn't a matter of me feeling bad because there's a financial loss that could happen if I use the property as designed to put a 1,500 square foot office building. The problem I have is if we put a 10 unit apartment complex with 14 parking spaces. Last I checked, most everyone in this room has 2 cars. If you're living with somebody, that means you need 20 parking spots. Where are you putting those cars? Out on Belterre Road? That'll be lovely. I look forward to the day where I have to get around one of the larger SUVs that are parked on Belterre Road. It won't be pretty. Mr. Rude, you won't have to worry about walking your dog across the street. You're not going to have to worry about it. You're going to be flooded. And that's going to bother me because I look right down on top of you when I know you're getting flooded.
Not to, sir, if you could just.
So, I'm sorry.
No.
My point is, there is more issue here than just a zoning change. This is a lifestyle change. This is 10 units going in a space where maybe a single family dwelling, if it was zoned for, could fit. Where a 1,500 square foot apartment building could fit. Not apartment building, sorry, business location could fit. Not a 10 unit apartment complex. I yield the floor.
Thank you, sir. John Giamalvo, and I apologize if I'm trashing your name. He's at 10 Princess Street Court.
Thank you for your time today. Again, I'm from 10 Princess Street Court. I think everybody's already hit on, I think, most of the high points. I'll try to keep it on the use case, which I think is the most egregious part of these applications. I come from a different perspective because I'm a new resident. I bought on Princess Street Court just about a year and a half ago. And with any buyer of a piece of property or a developer for a new piece of property, the expectations is the zoning that you're buying into would be upheld for a period of time. So I think that's the first concern as it relates to one of my neighbors who had a concern about property values. Major concern. And that, again, I don't think the applications from use to building code can be held mutually exclusive. They do run into each other. And I think the concerns that have already been said about the size of the property being cut in half, I think also throws, to use a building term, a wrecking ball into the zoning laws that are out here. Because then what would that say to the next developer to come in? What kind of precedent would we be setting? Secondly, as it relates to the setbacks on Belterre Road, which have already been enumerated by my neighbors, 10 feet off of Belterre, our side of Belterre Road, the western side, does not have so much as a sidewalk. So when you consider, by definition, temporary residents, by making the use case going from professional office, not to single family units, but to temporary multi-family dwellings, you cannot have the expectation of traffic without considering the increase in traffic from the hospital expansions and without considering the amount of traffic if there's children and the danger if there are children that will be living in those units and school buses stopping on Belterre Road, which is already can back up traffic on Belterre. Everybody's done a pretty good job in terms of the erosion problems. I don't have to remunerate them, but if you take away the natural trees that are there, which provide absorption, and put concrete or asphalt, which makes the water impervious to the underlying ground, by all means, you are going to have Niagara Falls going on there. So I'll keep my time short, but I think before getting into more concerns around the building code variances, I think the concern about the size of the property, the use case going from professional office, not to even single family homes where you have permanent residents, as you've heard some folks talk about, they've been in this village forever, but going to temporary apartments, I think is a major problem, and I'll pretty much leave it there because I think the other concerns then just fall in line regarding the setback and the encroachment into the buffer zone between the Princess Street Court properties, which should be 50. The subsequent application prays for a reduction to 25 feet, which I think it really causes undue compliance by my fellow residents from Princess Street Court.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Malcolm Jermine or Jim? Oh, yep. 1 Piccadilly Court. And just for the record, for clarification, Princess Street Court is on the same side of the street as this application that we're hearing. Sir?
Okay. If anybody it's going to affect is me. You know why? Because I live right below this project at 1 Piccadilly Court. Okay, I've lived there since 2016. I also own another property on High Street at 515 High Street that my father-in-law built in 1984. Okay, and that property is being devastated by erosion because St. Charles Hospital expanded their parking lot 20 years ago. Okay, I don't know who allowed it, but the entire bluff is coming down. The whole hill, trees, everything. This summer, I think you all know what happened there. Okay, not good. Okay, where I live, in Piccadilly Court, 3 years ago, we had one of those walls collapse because 150,000 gallons of water came down in minutes and took out a wall, okay? I live right behind this project. Princess Street Court, in the summer, it's great. I don't see it. The trees are all blooming. It's covered. I don't see it. In the winter, I see them all. Okay? The deer run up and down the hills there. They've eroded the brush, so the trees are falling down already without any construction. Okay? I don't know how you could build this. This lot's been for sale for years. Nobody's bought it because it's undevelopable. Okay, it's a straight drop. I'd like to take all of you there and walk the property. Okay, traffic. Okay, my wife's worked at the hospital for 38 years. There's 4,500 employees between the two hospitals. The hospitals are getting bigger. Matthew's going to open up their new emergency room in May. Okay, I don't know how you can allow this. You cannot allow this. It's unsafe for me. At night, I won't be able to sleep. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. John Zarowski at 640 Belterre Road. Sampro Properties? Yes, okay, there we go. Sir. Mhm.
I do. It's John Zukowski, office address 640 Belterre Road, Building A, Port Jefferson.
Sir.
I'm an attorney. I represent the owner of Building A, which is the building immediately south of this property. They purchased the property within the last several months. Been a significant, I don't know.
It is. He just needs to speak a little closer. He's.
How about I just talk louder?
Yeah.
Client bought the property immediately south of this development several months ago, expended a significant sum of money to renovate that building, new roof, redevelop the entire inside, redevelop the basement. And now we're told right after we purchased that there is a 10-unit apartment building going up. I think the board and the community are looking at this through the wrong lens. All of the variances that are listed are for a PO use. If this building was being developed for a 1,500 square foot office, all of the variances that are listed would be required. It's not. It's being used or intended to being used as a multiple dwelling. The only place a multiple dwelling use would be permitted would be in an RM zone. RM zone requires 120,000 square feet of lot space, 75-foot front yard setback, 2 spaces per unit. So the impact is significantly higher for a multiple dwelling than a professional office. And the reason that is because the town, the village has apparently recognized that a multiple dwelling requires more space. It requires more parking. It requires more garbage. There's a lot of things that go into a multiple dwelling that are not considered as part of the PO zone. So the proper lens to look through this application is as if it was in the zone that a multiple dwelling would be permitted, which would be an RM zone. And that column that is on the attachment to the code, I'm happy to hand it in,
You can submit that.
lists, it's part of the code, so it's public record either way. Again, is 120,000 square feet. This lot is 20,000 square feet. It's a 75-foot front yard setback. They're proposing 10. There's 5,500 square feet. I don't know the square footage of the property. It hasn't been stated as of yet. No, I'm talking about the property, the building itself. Because the RM zone requires 5,500 square feet of property space per dwelling unit. So we're not even close. So for that reason, along with all the other reasons brought up by the neighbors, again, my client's property is immediately south of this property. It's going to be affected by any construction that's done there. The runoff from this property is already significant. It's going to be worse. If the parking is allowed and is insufficient, the place they're going to be parking is in the parking lot in front of my client's building, cutting through the woods or over the retaining wall and going home. So
Your time is up, sir. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Just clarification, so where everyone's clear, no decision has been made. The purpose of this application is to hear everyone's concerns, is to go through the process. There has been no determination. There's been no approvals, no permits issued. This is a change of use application. Nothing's been granted. So I just want to be clear on that, just to clarify that. Dylan Dambios. Again, I apologize.
Apologies, it's French.
I apologize for butchering your name. Sir, if you could just sworn in.
I do. Dylan Dembois. 1201 Main Street, Port Jefferson, 1177 son.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. So we've all heard a lot about the impacts that changing this zone would have, and I don't think we can go on much longer at the exact same repeated ad nauseum that we have. But just to hit again, I don't think it's a problem that we want to have available and affordable housing. I actually implore that for our community. But we have to look at the environmental impact that would have around us, on our neighbors, on our community as a whole. And I agree with everyone when they talk about the erosion, when they talk about the constant flooding, and they talk about pretty much the destruction of forests that would lead to that. And so ultimately, I don't think that this change of use should go through, purely because we don't have the methodology to contain the issues that a property like this could cause. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Barbara Hagel?
I'll pass, enough has been said.
Okay. All right. That is your right. Melanie Corrine Gonzalez, 1201 Main Street. Good.
Yes. Melanie Corinne Gonzalez, not the Melanie Gonzalez that owns Simple Good. I'm a different Melanie Gonzalez. Okay, 1201 Main Street. Okay. So thanks for bearing with me. I'm a total layman. I had a hard time following. But I, like my husband over there, I acknowledge a shortage of housing and I appreciate dense and accessible housing. But that isn't something I love when it sacrifices the integrity of our local ecosystem or the lifestyle, finances, and safety of my fellow Port Jeff residents that will be affected by it. Port Jeff residents understand the impact of global climate change. We live it quite frequently. And to me, the request for change of use today did not meaningfully address the ecological impact with enough depth, and I strongly disapprove of this change of designated use or potential change. Read the claim that this would be preserving the woodlands. I as a layman didn't understand I didn't understand how that was in good faith. If the woodlands are already there, how is building a bigger structure rather than the one currently allowed somehow going to preserve? I served in the Marine Corps, I left Long Island, and I came back to buy my first home with my high school sweetheart here in Port Jeff. And I expect the community I live in to bring up requests in good faith and with compassion for their neighbors and the rest of our community. This project does seem motivated by profit rather than mutual benefit, because profit by itself is not an issue. It's the lack of mutual community that seems to be with it. And because I'm bringing up the finance only because it was referenced already in the presentation, and this claim that, the lack of a use variance somehow causes undue financial hardship. Again, as a layman, I don't understand how a real estate investor being unable to build their 10th or 20th real estate project on an area they chose to engage with of their own free will is somehow financial hardship. I don't understand that. And it feels like a decision based on profit without meaningful thought towards mutual benefit of our surrounding community and ecosystem. So it seems more prudent to consider a different viable area that doesn't mess with our neighbors or our ecosystem. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez, and thank you for your service. Andrew Thomas.
All right.
All right. For the record, Andrew Thomas is a former member of this board.
Yes, I have. And to that point, I'm actually going to try to speak really, oh, sorry. I know, I'm used to talking
You're
without
on the
swearing
other
in.
side now.
I do. All right. Andrew Thomas, 1037 Main Street, Port Jefferson. So I'm going to speak most specifically, I think, to the 4 criteria. Use variances are less common. I mean, I'm telling the board what they don't know, but maybe the audience. Use variances are a lot less common than area variances, and they're really hard to get. All 4 of these criteria need to be met in order to get a use variance. They have to show the financial hardship that's been discussed here. He has to demonstrate that in documents, which I guess have not been submitted. He needs to show that that this is unique, right? It's not just, it's not for the whole zone, it's for this property alone. And he needs to show that it won't affect the neighborhood character to detriment, and that the hardship is not self-created. And all four of those must be met in order to achieve a use variance. So it's a very tall lift. They don't happen that often. I'm going to speak specifically to those criteria. The financial hardship one is very hard, and he's made a case to where it's not profitable to develop this site unless essentially you get more return on your investment. The thing is, it's not the zoning code which is making this site unprofitable to develop. It's the site itself. That predates the zoning code. This thing hasn't been built for a reason. It's not suitable for building. It's a ravine, right? And so that piece is left there. The code is not taking from the owner of it. It's been bought and changed hands, probably at a value that acknowledges its lack of suitability for building for all these years. And now somebody's coming along, and essentially it's not a hardship, it's a speculation. There's an attempt to upzone this thing, to buy the land, to make a profit. And you know that because the purchase of the land is contingent upon getting these variances, right? There's no hardship from the applicant that could be demonstrated because they don't own the land. And the hardship that would be for building on this thing doesn't have to do with the fact that it's office or building. The argument for building a bigger building in a different type of use is to make more money to make it possible to develop the land, which is hard to develop because it's a ravine, right? So the hardship doesn't hold up. In terms of the uniqueness of it, the uniqueness of the land, yes, but the uniqueness of the trading of one zone for another, office for residential, in order to essentially increase the profits to show that the numbers pencil out, that's not unique to the zone. If you start to give that to somebody for this property, you're going to essentially start to get the same argument from other POs, and that becomes a rezone, which is why the code requires the uniqueness as a precept for this, so that you guys aren't rezoning all of PO. That's left up to the Board of Trustees.
You're at 3 minutes.
Oh, can I loop back
quickly.
after? Thank you.
Nancy Coyne.
I do. My name is Nancy Coyne. I live at 6 Piccadilly Court. I'm the president of the HOA. It's the Port Hollow HOA. We have 6 houses, as you've heard from my neighbors. I moved there about less than 4 years ago. And when you talk about the environmental impact, we live below where they're planning to build. The medical buildings and the professional buildings are right directly above us. The ravine that is now currently for sale or for this is directly behind number 1 and number 2 of Piccadilly Court. Okay, so I moved in here about 4 years ago, less than 4 years ago, and I've noticed about the environment and the erosion. It's insane, and you think that it can't happen, but on September 3rd, 2021, there was that deluge. Well, from the deluge, we got 7 inches of rain, according to Newsday. This is what happens when a wall fails. We're directly below. And this is the only 4 foot. There's a 40-foot one on the other side. It
At this
goes.
point, I'm going to ask you just to address the board if you don't mind.
Okay, so it's a wall that surrounds all the houses that we have. This is the smallest part of the wall, and it failed from 150,000 gallons of water coming off a parking lot directly above us, which is right next to the ravine where the water goes down. So this is what a failure looks like. So it's very upsetting to me that when you see the area, it's a ravine where the water has to go someplace. Nobody addressed the failure of this thing from a parking lot. The water carried off a car with the front wheels over the edge of the parking lot. Where were you guys when you built this thing? Where were you guys when you did it? It's high up. We're 40 feet below, and now you think it can't happen? But it did. And I think we've had another flood last year. We had more water where the waters were just coming right over the wall because there's just no place for it to go. So it can happen. It did happen. And, and we're going to we're gonna build there? It's insane. It's insane. That's all I can say. I have pictures. Would you like them?
If you'd like to give them to me.
Yeah, I would. This is where we are. This is the back of our property, this is 2 Piccadilly Court, right over here, and number 1.
Mhm.
This is what the wall looks like when it fails.
Okay, perfect.
Okay?
I'll put it into the record.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy will add this in as an exhibit. Robert Kozlowski?
In the interest of time, I'll just email.
That's your choice. Thank you, sir. Carolyn Sue Sakenstein.
Yes. My name is Carolyn Sue Sackstein. I live at 16 Princess Tree Court. The change of use is not in keeping with the character of the community. The apartment buildings that are sited on the east side of Belterre Road have a wooded area that blocks it from, to a significant degree, from the edge of the road. And they have a walking path, a sidewalk there also. So there is a setback that, and it's wooded, so that you don't really see the apartment buildings when they're in full bloom, the vegetation. The application mentioned that the wooded area doesn't have much undergrowth. Well, there's mountain laurel, there's rhododendron, there's all sorts of different plants in that area that have root systems, vinage such as wild raspberry and wild rose hedge. The root systems are holding the soil. When we had that horrible rain this past August in 2024, the Muse, that was a condo complex on High Street across from the old junior high, they were inundated with sand and gravel and rock. It was a horrendous cleanup for that community. Years ago, there was soil erosion from behind St. Charles that came down Thompson Street, right into Good Time Bookstore, when Good Times was there. This whole ridge is a delicate environmental area. And we live in Princess Tree Court at the very bottom of the cul-de-sac there. We're below the street line. And we would be, the value of our property, looking out on a wooded area or a small professional development, an office building of 1,500 feet, would, it's very different if the zoning stays exactly and use stays exactly as it is. If it were to be developed with 10 housing units and the need for parking and all that, the value of our property, that we're retired people for the most part. I'm retired now. My husband still does work, but that's where our home is the basis for our, that's our biggest investment. And the value of our property, should we need to sell it to go into another facility or something, would be diminished.
Ms. Saxton, you're at 3.
Thank you.
Eric Saxton? I just took them as the way they were handed me. I apologize, sir.
Okay. My name is Eric Sackstein. Yes, I am. Okay. To make this quick, since most of my neighbors have said pretty much what I was going to say, except under 25049, I think B 2A1, if you create your hardship, you don't get a variance for it. He's creating his hardship. This is zoned for something he doesn't want to build in that. He wants something else. He created it. If he doesn't do that, he's not going to buy this property if you don't grant this variance. So therefore, his hardship is self-induced. He doesn't care about us. That traffic study, I'm a real estate attorney. I built Canyon Creek below on Myrtle Avenue. I built the end part of these. I built houses in Mount Sinai. I built commercial buildings. I've done traffic studies. I've done environmentals. This has not been done. It's not going to, this property is such that the people who live on Piccadilly, they have a horror show to wait for. This does not get better. Our road was not approved for a village road because you can't get a fire truck turn around in there without backing up. What are you going to do with a fire truck that has to pull into this place? What are you going to do if it's a 10-foot setback? How are they going to do the construction on this place? What is it going to do to the road while this is being done? This is only for the area variance, not talking about the others which don't make any sense at all. And the 175 they're talking about as needed for the rear setback, and it's 171, it's an angle. The other one is like 140. So it's not 171, it's less. He's doing this for himself to make him money. He doesn't care about us or any of us. You've heard everyone speak about it for that reason. I have petitions against it. I have letters against it, which I'll give to you. You don't have to read it. But that's the thing. The law says he's not entitled to this variance based on the code.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Bob LaRave. I apologize. 214 Maiden Lane. And I apologize if I butchered your name. Going once. Going twice. Now we're gonna 4 Piccadilly Court. I'm not even gonna attempt the name. It's I apologize, sir. I'm not. I don't want to butcher your name.
You need to take a class.
Sir, if you could just.
All right.
Sir, if you could just face the young lady and get
Oh,
sworn in.
yeah. For sure.
Give you-
Agajan Mohammadi.
Good?
Good?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
All right. What works in this community is evidence. Evidence, right? Nancy provided evidence. Nancy also has a video of my house, right? Water flooding. You have 94,000 square footage of land with 300 wide and the rest is length. Imagine we are talking about Port Jefferson. Port Jefferson is prone to flooding and rain because the topography of the land requires that kind of flooding. Our situation is worse. We have 6 houses below a grade of, they say 20%, I say 25%. That you cannot even walk. If you want to do some mountain climbing, it's very hard to climb. Now, there is no French drain, there is no stoppage of anything, and the town hasn't done anything to stop this. So we really complain about this situation, that you guys have not taken care of this situation. And I wrote a check for $1,200 in August. Marcus, when was the date? August?
It's August 18, 19.
Yes, August. I checked the right $1,200 for a crew to come 7 in the morning to clean the garbage. So I cannot say more.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad.
I actually have a video off that scene right behind this house.
We can look at that later. One last one is Marilyn R. Damascus. She's with the Port Jefferson Civic Board.
I do. Maryland R. Damascus, 601 Scrag Hill Road, Port Jefferson. Okay, so, yes, Good evening. We have submitted a letter to you. Perhaps you have not received it, but to, my due diligence towards our organization is imperative that I read this to you. Dear Mark, dear Chairperson Brosman, the Port Jefferson Civic Association, representing the interests of our community, formally objects to the proposed zoning change from the professional office to the residential for the Appeal Zoning Board 0009/24 and the property located at the Beltier Road vacant lot owned by Thomas Corraro, trustee of the Natoli Supplemental. Our primary objection stems from the absence of demonstrating unique circumstances that would justify the deviation from the established zoning regulations. As stipulated in the code guiding change of use decisions, the property does not present any unique characteristics that are absent in other lots in the village. Our observation is that the driving force behind these applications is the higher earnings potentials of the residentially zoned properties. Yet, financial considerations alone, such as the potential for increased profit under a residential designation, do not constitute sufficient grounds for a zoning change. Zoning regulations are essential tools for preserving the character and integrity of our village. Port Jefferson's vibrant and diverse community relies on a carefully planned distribution of residential, commercial, and professional zones. The presence of small and medium-sized businesses, in addition to larger institutions like Mather and St. Charles, is crucial for maintaining a healthy and balanced local economy. We are deeply concerned that approving this application would establish a detrimental precedent, effectively creating a pathway for the gradual conversion of other professional office zoned properties to residential use. This piecemeal approach to zoning changes undermines the comprehensive planning necessary for the sustainable development of our village. We believe that such a significant alteration to the village zoning landscape warrants a thorough and deliberate discussion involving the Board of Trustees and the entire community. This matter should be addressed within the context of a comprehensive village-wide plan, rather than through individual zoning variance applications. Therefore, the Port Jefferson Civic Association strongly urges the Zoning Board of Appeals to deny the proposed zoning change. Sincerely, Port Jefferson Civic Association. And in addition to that, everything has been reiterated countless number of times, but on the terraces, which is the Princess Court, on this particular set of property, there is, and it says, no outlet. The other two apartment complex.
Ms. Meskis, you're at your 3 minutes. I'm sorry, you're at 3 minutes.
I am. Then I apologize. But
And
these
no
pictures were just to say the inconvenience of the traffic patterns that now exist.
Cindy,
Thank
just
you.
for the record,
Thank you
did
for listening.
Did we get a copy of this letter? Could you make sure you get a copy via email or one way or another? Is there any, that was my last piece of paper of someone who wanted to speak. Is there anyone else that has not been heard that would like to be heard? Going once, going twice. I'm going to give Andrew Thomas at his request 2 minutes, and then we'll be done with the open.
Then I'll be quick, but just to clarify, there will be an opportunity on the second application, which is the area variances, to speak again. So I'll just be speaking to the use variance. Yes?
Speaking while I'll explain it to you at that. Let's close this application.
Well, I do have a lot to say on that, so I'd like to know if I'm trying to fit that in now.
You can. Well, we're not going to hear that tonight because the change of use affects the variances. So
All right.
We've spoken to the applicant. I was going to announce that after I close.
Thank you. Okay, so then I'll speak quickly to neighborhood character. I've already spoken to the first two. They're the more complicated ones, and I think hopefully made a case that neither of them apply. Obviously, someone made a very good case that the hardship is self-created. If there were an applicant that owned this land before it was zoned that way, maybe they would have an argument. But the notion that this land has been purchased as is, and its unsuitability for building is innately clear to anybody that sees it, and that now that's a hardship on the person that maybe wants to speculatively purchase it. It's clearly self-created. In terms of the neighborhood character, there are some other multifamily residences along that stretch, but none immediately around this, right? So you could make an argument that there is, for whatever reason, there is other multifamily in the area, but this is bumping right up against single-family homes and small offices. So it's a total change in character of the neighborhood. And as many of those residents have said, and the office tenants have said, a detriment to it. So that negatively affects the character. So as I read it, all four criteria fall down. In addition, it's proximity to the road, but that relates to the area variances, and some of those criteria is also out of character with the neighborhood. By obeying the setback, by and large, I don't have a tape measure out there, but all the other buildings are further back from the road, as you could see on their site plan, and allow for a proper buffer of woods, not just a few hedges or something, right? This really is out of character in that regard as well, the site plan specifics of that application. In addition, then, if I'm trying to rush in all the rest of it, let me talk to SECRA really quickly. SECRA is the environmental review that they're going to have to do before this goes anywhere. Actually, if you were denying the application, you wouldn't have to do SECRA. So I don't know whether that's an indication. If you thought you would deny it based upon the area variances alone, and the applicant were to withdraw the use, then the SECRA process would be unnecessary. So I don't know what your internal consideration is there. But if you're doing SECRA, I love this board, but I would honestly suggest that you ask the planning board to be lead agency. The criteria that I haven't spoken yet to the environmental aspects of it because so many other people have, but this is, people talk about death by 1,000 cuts from removing woodland in terms of runoff and drainage. This is the artery, it's not another cut. This is the ravine where all the water flows, right? And the trees are there holding it back, and they're gonna put a wall in there. I don't know that you can do the hydrology, but it's the planning board that's going to have to work their way through a responsible site plan with the applicant in a world where you pass these variances. And I would suggest they have the expertise of working on those drainage issues and the ecological and site grading and retaining wall issues to really tackle that problem. And it's going to end up in their lap if they get a yes anyway. So I would strongly suggest handing it off to them, even though I fully respect and trust this board. And then,
Andrew, you're
yep.
two additional minutes.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much.
Sure, just hold on 1 second. Hold on. There's two other people that want to speak. I'm gonna limit you to 2 minutes, and then we're gonna go from there. I'm gonna start, if it's okay, I'll start with him. You'll be next, then we'll go like that, sir. Quickly. Just say your name for the record, please.
Jim Collier, 21 Princess Street Court. So I overheard the comment coming from behind me saying when he brought up single-family dwelling, there seemed to be a little bit of an issue. So I just want to clear up, Princess Street Court is single-family dwellings. We are charged as single-family dwellings. We pay taxes as single-family dwellings. They may look like they're adjoined, but they are single-family dwellings. We are not a multi-unit property. That is clear. That is understood by the state, the town, and that's all I needed to say to clarify the comment that was made behind me.
Thank you. Hold on. Go ahead, sir.
So right behind my house,
Just say your name for the record again.
Malcolm Germain, right behind my house.
Just say the name.
Malcolm Germain.
Thank you.
The final landscape, which was done by my friend Jay Ratto, he put tremendous boulders, okay, behind there to diffuse the water. So when I moved in, I'm like, why did you put them like that? He goes, because if I didn't put them there, the water would come down like a river. So with those big boulders, spread the water out. I've had complete washouts in my backyard. All the wood chips, everything washed out. I cleaned it up, okay? But the rains we've had, I grew up in this area. Has anybody gone down to Stony Brook lately? Okay? That's it, guys.
Thank you, sir. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I just want to explain something, the process, so that everyone understands, because there seems to be a little bit of right now, no secret has been done. We're waiting for lead agency to be determined, which, as you heard earlier, I made a motion to have staff send out a letter. Also, the applicant has 4 criteria he has to meet. He has to come back to us with a number of things. It's on a use. So there'll be a number of times where he'll be in front of this board. You'll have time to speak on all those applications. They will all be public hearings. At the moment, we're going to hold open the hearing tonight until lead agency is determined, and then at which point, once lead agency is determined, staff will begin the secret review. We will continue moving forward with this, but as of tonight, nothing's going to happen other than I'm going to make a motion that we hold this hearing open until lead agency is determined. Do I have a second?
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so this part of the application is closed. As to the variance portion of the application, we are not going to hear that tonight. We had a conversation. The variances go hand in hand with the use. If the use does not get approved or does get approved, then the variances go hand in hand. So we're not going to hear it tonight because if we don't approve the use but approve the variances, we could have a detrimental issue on the property. So the applicant has agreed to postpone his application for the area variances. That is not to say that they will not be heard at a later date. They are not going to be heard tonight because the use has to be determined before the variances can be determined. That will not be heard, and we'll be moving on to our third. I'm going to take a brief 10-minute recess, and then we are going to hear our third application on that.
Excuse me,
Yes, ma'am.
will a notice be sent out for the variance hearing?
Yes, a notice will be sent, just like you were notified about this. You will be notified in accordance with all the laws and requirements of. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Do we have any opportunity to rebuttal some of the?
Not at this moment. We've kind of just at this moment. There's you've presented your application. We've heard. There's a number of things that have to happen at this point. So we're really not. I don't want to get into a rebuttal about this is green, this is blue, this is we're not going to get there. That being said, we're going to take a 10-minute recess and then we're going to hear the third application on the agenda.
Gentleman over there had his hand up.
I'm sorry, did I miss somebody? I apologize if I. Oh yeah, sure, no problem. Yeah, absolutely. You're in Piccadilly, right? Okay. Beach Street, appeal number ZB-0014-25. Suffolk County Tax Map number 0206-11-003-006. It's in the RB2 Residential Zoning District. Location is 207 Beach Street. The property owner is John J. Gargan Jr. Applicant is John J. Gargan Jr. The contact is Woodhull Expediting, care of Amy DeVito. Description: proposed construction of an addition to connect an existing two-story residence to an existing detached accessory structure. It's a public hearing. The proposed project requires the following variances pursuant to the Village Code 250, Attachment 3, bulk and parking regulations for residential structures. The applicant proposes the following variances. Number 1, southwest side yard setback of, 0.9 feet at the rear of the structure where 18 feet are required. Number 2, a southeastern side yard setback of 2 feet closest to the street frontage where 18 feet is required. A combined side yard setback of 13.7 feet where 40 feet is required. And number 4, a front yard setback of 6 feet where 40 feet is required. Mr. Vito, you may proceed. Actually, hold on one second. Cindy, do we have all the mailings and documentation required? Okay. Amy, go ahead.
I do. Amy DeVito, Woodhull Expediting, with offices at 800 Veterans Memorial Highway, Hauppauge, New York. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. So we are here proposing to attach a detached garage to the home. The home and the garage are both certified. They're certificated under a certificate of existing use from 1994. This application consists of a small addition between the home and the garage to create open living space between the two. We are proposing to convert the, what I'll say is, I guess, ground floor of the garage to living space with a small loft above it. The lower level, which you could see in the photo right there, is going to remain a garage, but we are actually cutting back the entire building approximately 6 feet to bring it more into conformity.
You're done, go home.
So there is right now, the property is obviously non-conforming. We are proposing to cut off 6 feet of the front of the entire facade of the building and push it back. So the footprint of the building is remaining exactly as it is today, except for we are bringing the front of the building into better conformity. Thank you. So I just want the board to note that all the setbacks are remaining the same from what they were. What's triggering these variances is the conversion of the building to be attached and then part of the living space of the home. So there is no additional impact to the property as far as setbacks or encroachments into setbacks. As far as the front of the garage, right now we are at its closest 0.9 feet from the front of the property, and we are going to be proposing to be 6 feet instead. So the only thing that's changing is actually improving the front yard setback. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
All right, good. I have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
Just for clarification, in this picture, the garage is the structure with the, we'll say, yellow siding?
Correct.
Okay. The 6 feet that you're posing, first question is, why are you doing that, other than to bring more compliance? Is there a specific reason why you're doing
There
it?
is.
Bring in compliance.
The reason why we're doing that specifically, and it just worked out that it would be bringing it into better compliance, was because if you're too close to any property line on with a habitable space structure, you then have to have fire. What's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, I'm drawing a blank.
Fire sprinklers?
No.
Nope.
Come on, Tom. Fire rating. Sorry. You have to have a fire rating. You can't be within 5.
Again.
You can't be within 5 feet of a property line without having proper fire rating. So for New York State Building and Fire Code, it was just better to have it set back. Jack Roseberry, who's the architect of record, he actually had this discussion many years ago with Jennifer Sigler of the Building and Planning Department in designing this as it is today. So this is a project that's kind of been lingering for a while, and we're finally getting
All right.
it on its feet.
Just out of curiosity, how are you achieving moving the building back 6 feet? Are you?
They are literally taking off the entire front facade
Okay.
and putting a new footing in where the garage doors will be and foundation.
Okay. I'm gonna try this one more time, Amy. You break the microphone again. No problem. So a couple of questions for you, just for clarification purposes. Currently, prior to attaching the two structures, they are 0.9, and they current all the variances you're asked for are in place. You're not exasperating, you're not creating, you're not
That's
other than
correct.
the 6 feet away from the moving 6 feet further from the front property line.
Correct. We are not creating any more of an intensive impact than already exists.
Okay. Are there any other structures in the neighborhood that currently are at this property line, have similar property lines, or?
I mean, this whole area on Beach Avenue there's a lot of smaller lots. There's a lot of lots that are built that have structures very close to property lines. I don't have their surveys, so I couldn't tell you exactly what they are, but just based on looking around the neighborhood for this particular strip of homes on Beach, this is definitely not something that's not uncommon. Most of these houses were built before the incorporation of the village and before there was, zoning code and things of that nature. So a lot of these, I believe, have certificate of existing uses.
Does anyone else from the board have any questions or comments?
So just to clarify, you are going to still maintain the use of a garage with a garage door in that space, or is it actually going to be completely changed to something?
So if you, can we go back to that photo of the facade? Yeah, I think it was the first one. The garage is actually like partially built into the ground because of how the property slopes upward. So the lower level is going to remain a garage, and the it's like a 2.5 story structure. So as you can see, where the garage is now, that's going to remain a garage. Above it is going to be the living space, the conversion of the living space, and then up where you see those two windows at the peak, that's just going to be a little loft area, just like a little sitting area.
The connection point between the structures, is it enclosed or is it
Yes.
outdoor?
It's completely enclosed. It's habitable space from the house to the detached structure.
Does the current garage or loft have plumbing facilities in it?
No. We are proposing plumbing facilities. As far as I know, there's no plumbing in it now, not that I've seen at least.
Okay.
Unless it's hiding
But you're
somewhere.
proposing to put
A bathroom.
Right.
Correct.
No additional kitchen. It's not going to be an apartment. It's not going to be a rental.
No,
apartment.
we're not proposing that, no.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board?
No.
Okay. Amy, can you just walk me through the 5 criteria and just tell me what you're,
Yes. Usually the 5 criteria is on this memo, and I want to look at it.
So I'll throw them out to you. Just respond to them. Whether an
I have
undesirable
it.
change would be produced in the character of the neighborhood.
No, it will not. This is actually, as far as the project that we're proposing, it is interior alterations only with a very small addition, no further impact on setbacks, and we are improving one of the setbacks, as I stated earlier, the front yard.
And it's your testimony that this is not going to be in a rental. It's not your intention to make it a rental apartment.
It's at this time, I was not hired to propose such. As far as, so the actual house itself right now is being rented, and my client I did not handle the rental application, but according to my client, there is a approved rental license in place. This
That's
home,
the main house.
that's correct.
Right.
The garage itself is going to be converted for further habitable space, and Mr. Gargan's, I believe, partner, or perhaps the other gentleman on the deed, they are going to be residing in the house with their daughter.
Okay. So it's not gonna, it's still gonna be one rental property. It's not gonna be two, that addition that, I said, that connection we're letting them have is not going to become a second.
No, we're not proposing that. Correct. And I believe that Mr. Gargan's, the gentleman that's going to live in the house with his wife and daughter, I believe they're actually, one of them is on the deed as well. So it's actually, it would be owner occupied.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Whether the applicant could achieve the, can be achieved by some other method feasible?
No, yeah, no, I mean, we're repurposing a structure that already exists. So this would be the most feasible avenue for us to achieve what we're looking for.
Whether the variance is substantial, mathematically, yes, you could say that some of them are substantial, right?
Correct, but they are pre-existing, so as far as what we're requesting today, based on what has been certificated in the past, it is de minimis and actually improving based on the front yard setback becoming better.
Whether the proposed variance will have any physical or environmental impact to the neighborhood? We don't see any right at this moment in time.
Nope, not at all.
And whether it's self-created, almost all.
Yeah, I've never met one that wasn't, so.
Right. All right. Any other questions or comments from the board? One more time. All right, I'm going to open this up to the public. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this application? Please come forward. I just need you to be sworn in, please.
I do. Evan Kick. Evan, E-V-A-N, K-I-C-K.
And what's your address, sir?
I'm 209 Beach Street.
All right, just for the, where are you relative?
Yes, so in this picture, I'm the house on the right.
Okay, excellent.
Okay. So our main concern with this project was, right now, it's the main house is being rented. Our main concern is that with this addition, it's going to become multiple rentals. Our house was built in 1840. We do not have a driveway. We depend on on-street parking. The street gets very, very busy. If this becomes multiple rentals, like our fear is that we're not going to have a place to park our cars. We live by a couple of businesses that drive huge trucks down the street all the time. That could really have like a negative impact on us. That's the case.
Okay. Just while you're here, you heard Amy say that, because we were thinking the same thing. So
Yeah.
you heard me say that, ask her that. She's indicated that the main house is already a rental property, as you stated.
Right.
But the connection, we'll call it the connection that they're making, is going to be owner occupied. It's not going to be an additional, it's not their intention. I can't see into the future, but they've testified on the record that they are not going to make that an additional rental. It's going to be owner occupied. So, okay?
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this application? Going once, going twice? Any other questions? Would have any other questions for Mr. Vito?
No.
All right. That being said, make a motion that we close the hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
The last and final application for this evening. The agenda. 415, 417 East Main Street, appeal number ZB-4-24, Suffolk County Tax Map number 206-12-01- sorry, -0010-001 and 002.2. This is in the C1 Central Commercial District. Location is 415, 417 East Main Street. East Main Street, existing three-story building in the historic district. The owner is Pietro Perillo. The applicant's Pietro Perillo. The contact is Woodhull Expediting, care of Amy DeVito. Proposed mixed-use apartment building. The action is a public hearing. Proposed project requires the following variances pursuant to the Port Jefferson Village Code. 250 attachment 2, bulk and parking regulations for non-residential, floor ratio area 2 required, 2.2 requested. 250-18F, Section 4, subsection C, Section 1. A lot in which any proposed freestanding apartment is to be constructed shall have a minimum of 40,000 square feet, where 5,889.6 square feet requested. 250-18, Section F, Section 4, Section F, Part F, Section 4, subsection C, 2, shall be constructed only on that portion of the district which does not front on Main Street or East Main Street, constructed on Main Street requested. Floor is all yours, Amy.
Amy DeVito, Woodhull Expediting, with offices at 800 Veterans Memorial Highway, Hauppauge, New York.
And I'll remember to ask this before next time. Cindy, do we have all the mailings in on this? And Amy, did you receive the staff report on this?
Yes, I did.
All right, again, it's all yours.
Okay, so this building is currently utilized as retail and office space. We obviously had a pandemic years ago that changed the need for office space quite substantially. What we're looking to do here is basically repurpose this building to have it be an apartment building. Most of the variances that we're seeking today are based on pre-existing conditions. Obviously, we cannot change the lot area. It exists that way and has served this building for many years in its current use. And I'll just go through them one by one. So we are requesting a lot area variance for 5889.6 square feet as opposed to the 40,000 square feet that's required. Again, this particular lot area cannot change. The building itself is not changing in size other than a small addition for an elevator and stairway to provide the required egress. That equates to about 390 square feet. Which is also what is triggering the increase in FAR. So the permitted FAR is 2. We are requesting 2.2. The existing building itself is actually non-conforming in FAR and is 2.13. So we are asking for a very de minimis increase from 2.13 to 2.2. And then we are also requesting a variance for to have have the building front on Main and East Main, basically, which is obviously how the building is situate today. We wouldn't be able to change that without completely redesigning the building. So, and that's not what we feel would be the most environmentally sound for this particular project. We are trying to repurpose the building with minimal improvements as possible to make it work for today's changing housing needs. So as far as you know what? I'm going to introduce Michael Morbillo. He is from Inspired Design Group. He's the gentleman that designed the site plan and the floor plans. So we can have him come up to talk about any technical questions the board may have and just explain the project as far as a architectural and site plan standpoint. So I will have Mike come up.
Amy, before you walk away, are there is there any rental right now in any of these two buildings? One's Fame and Rebel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rebel building.
One's Fame and Rebel, and the other one is.
This used to be New Bridge Realty, or
Yeah.
New
That's still there.
That's still there.
Okay.
Right.
So New Bridge
But
Realty.
there's no rental apartments.
No. It's all offices on the second and third floor.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay, Mike. Floor is yours, my friend.
I do.
Like, and I have
Sure.
to say thank you. You got stamina, my friend.
Yeah. Thank you very much. For the record, my name is Michael Morbillo. My firm is Inspire Design Group. My offices are located at 4964 Express Drive South, Ronkonkoma, New York. Okay, so just to kind of outline, we have a 3-story building here. The total area of the building is approximately 12,554 square feet. And as Amy mentioned, we're adding about 390 square feet. Primarily that's for elevator and new fire stairs being put in, some slight, very minor renovations to accommodate the elevator in this building. We're also proposing on the second and third floor will be in total about 8 apartments. The apartments do range in size from, we'll say, habitable area of about 400 to about 800 square feet. The total area ranges probably somewhere from about 600 or so square feet to over 1,000 square feet. So the habitable, that space not including bathrooms and closets and hallways. So what part of what Amy was talking about, sort of having this de minimis impact and the increases from that increased area. Something else which I think Amy's going to get into is that the building, as far as an office usage, which is what is on the CO, and also retail space, had previously had about 42 parking spaces allotted to the building. Part of what we see as a reduction in I'll say, environmental impact of this application is that this new usage will basically require about 31 stalls. So right now, the building has the benefit of utilizing public parking, and will be lowering the impact of that of the use of this building by taking about 11 parking spaces out of public parking. The other thing, as I think Amy was talking about, I'll say from an environmental standpoint, or one of the criteria as far as having a negative environmental impact, from an environmental standpoint, we're doing adaptive reuse on a building. So certainly, we're not demolishing a building, tearing it down, putting this building into a landfill, and then using, expanding our carbon footprint by utilizing all new materials for a new development. So that's something that's recognized as being environmentally friendly and basically having a net positive as far as environmental impact. In general, though, straightforward proposal. Both buildings there's 2 sites here, and both of them are utilizing second and third floor apartments. And the first floor will maintain that retail and sort of still office use. So that which has been an active part is going to be maintained. And I think I've covered most of it architecturally. They are looking to, replace windows and other things. There'll be new windows, energy compliant windows, replace a little bit of a hodgepodge of what you see on the facade now to clean up the building. So that's part of the architectural features. We're also adding in handicap accessibility into the building to improve that for access from sidewalks and entrances and other things. So if the board has any questions for me at this time, I'd be happy to answer them. There are some site improvements I could get into. They're kind of minor, though.
Actually, I have a question. Can we move down Main Street a little bit to the back of the building? Yep. Move down that way. Yep. No, turn around. That additional 300 feet is going to be on top of this.
Yes.
Yeah. Those 2 windows are.
Yes. Yep.
Close those 2 windows, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then the stairs you talked about are around the back.
They're around the back.
Right.
Yep. So that area is going to be closed in, and we are access through the site right now is through this this driveway easement. There is no on-site parking. We are introducing a small dumpster and some drainage behind the building, just to handle a small paving area that's on site. That's pretty minimal as far as site improvements. The building occupies a large part of the site. So we do have some space to add in a stairwell, fire stair, and a dumpster, small dumpster enclosure, and some drainage in the back, some dry wells for some of the paving.
And I'm sorry, that 300 square feet for the record is one of the variances you're asking for it's because it fronts on Main Street, would be right where those 2 windows are right now.
Correct.
Correct.
Right there.
Okay, perfect. Does anybody have any questions or comments for this applicant?
Can you go into a little more detail about the enhancements you'll be making to the exterior?
Sure. So what we're looking at is, basically replacing this sort of a hodgepodge of windows, replacing the windows, and bringing like the siding, getting it more unified around the building. So basically to have, we basically have, what's like a cedar impression siding. Those are, clean that up. Clean up the window fenestration and other things. We do have elevations that are submitted with the application, but primarily it's, probably cleaning up the corner a little bit more, which is a little bit more prominent. And again, there's sort of a mix of windows that are there, so it does occupy a prominent spot, being on the corner. So basically just cleaning up the facade, straightening up the windows, getting the siding in place, and probably maybe not so much as the sort of regular, as the first floor is not changing, probably not too much in here, but around at the intersection is where most of the facade changes will occur.
Can you show the front of the building again, please?
Just real quick, before you
Sure.
stop, that's cinder block.
Yep.
Are you going to do something with that facade? or-
I think that's something that, that's something that, we're looking to reside that area,
Not the
yeah.
most attractive look.
Yeah, it's not, yeah, so that area is something brought in there too. This area in here too, all this, there's a big hodgepodge. So actually, this area here, even probably some of this, there's been elements added in, line up windows, new windows up top. And then also, we would have less of these type of windows and more like your basic double hung windows along the front of the facades, more regular spacing. There is a mix here, and I'm not sure the historic character of this Gothic window there, but,
Don't bring that up.
but, there's a lot of different things mixed in here. So we're looking to basically introduce more double hung windows and new siding in these areas.
You have no intention of changing the front architectural design as it sits now?
No. There's something inboard that you can't really see where there's an elevator shaft being planned.
Yep.
But it's not visible from this view. There's just beyond this little roof here. There's like a little flat rooftop that's out of sight.
Mm-hmm.
Fame and Rebels staying?
Say that again? Yes. Yeah. As of now, as far as I know, there's no changes for them.
Further up, what happens at the break point of the, just right around there?
Yeah, small side yard over here. Yep.
So you're considering, even though you got it's two buildings, you're considering it one building?
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Because one of the things that I don't want to say I struggled with, but you're calling it, in one of your variances, you're looking for a freestanding apartment structure. And I don't necessarily, I didn't see it as a freestanding structure because you were now taking on a separate building.
And that's maybe more of an ownership issue, but it's under one ownership, if I'm not mistaken. It's under the same ownership. So
what made you ask for that? And maybe that's not a question for you, but what made you ask for that variance? Your second variance is a lot on a proposed freestanding apartment constructed within. Your second variance, which is a lot on which any proposed freestanding structure is to be constructed, have a minimum of 40,000 square feet.
Well, we're looking at this as freestanding, as in the two buildings combined are freestanding.
Okay. I didn't see it that way. I mean, even though the same ownership, they're two separate aren't they two separate lots? Am I right in understanding that on the map?
No.
Or are they all one lot?
No, they are two separate lots. Lots 1 and lots 1 and lots 2.2, but the buildings are being improved together as one building. Like they're going to be free flowing between the two. We're combining the buildings and creating the apartment with the retail below and the office below, which is what exists now. So even though it's technically two separate tax lots and the COs may cross over and or not, this, for all intents and purposes, is being treated as one building.
You want to give some comment on here on that, on your thoughts?
Yeah, we intend to call it the way it's right.
Tom, I need you to come up and do it officially, please.
Do I need to be sworn in? No. I do.
As we looked at this project, there were various iterations of this thing. At one point, it was a complete apartment complex proposed on this when it first came. I think that was about a year ago, and then that was withdrawn at that time with some changes with the on the property itself. So the freestanding portion of this, it's a freestanding building. By nature of it, you can combine the lots for the purpose of the code. It is freestanding. Where I would say it may differ from a freestanding building is the way it's being proposed now, keeping some of the retail use. It's a mixed-use building. Okay, the primary portion of this is apartment complex, and the accessory portion of this would be the retail on the main level.
Because the application we heard earlier this evening is a freestanding apartment complex. You know,
And that's being built from the ground up. Correct.
Right.
Right.
That's why.
But to say, I think you're kind of confusing this in saying that because it's attached to another building, that it's not a freestanding building. It is a freestanding structure. Okay, so in that respect, I'm owned by the same owner with combined uses within it that are contiguous.
Are we going to be merging the tax lots? I mean,
That may be something that'd be taken up during planning or review with that. We have another project where we're kind of going through that up by the railroad. But
Is there current passway access between section 1 and section 2 of this
not that I'm
freestanding
aware of.
building?
My
Or are
understanding,
they both
they're creating it.
Okay, so there is not currently accessibility.
they're creating.
They're creating the access between the two buildings. There is one access.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments?
I do have one more question. So, given the prominence of this location, like and how central it is, do you have any thoughts on how disruptive the construction might be, and have you given thought to how you can mitigate that disruption?
Is that something that you would like to answer?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, the work is going to be, interior to the building primarily. I mean, that's where the major part of the disruption is going to be. But they're going to have to stage the construction work pretty much like, we're almost full lot coverage. So as any other building that's been developed, the contractor is going to have to follow the requirements of the village as far as any staging or loading of work and booming of materials and other things. So whether that means road permits to be able to load into the building, or temporarily load from the back of the building, because there is some space behind the building, and there is an access driveway, so they will have an area. I don't know if we have the site plan or a top view of the building. There is some staging area behind the building to work from, because there's a little bit of what I would call a courtyard or something on the back of the building. So, but they are gonna be doing things not to disrupt traffic on Main or East Main.
Yeah. So no, the effort will be made then to stage this behind the building.
Yes, I think that's primarily the access to do it to go in there, but. I don't know if Andy had something.
Yeah. Just want to add that during.
Are you an attorney?
Yes. The applicant will be required during site plan and with the building inspector during a building permit to coordinate with DPW the staging or any deliveries, things like that.
Okay.
And Andy, before you sit down, they're going to be required to go in front of the ARC?
That's at the discretion of the planning board. Staff might recommend that they go to the ARC, but the planning board would just decide that.
Okay. And so just one final question then. Assuming, like, if this is approved, do you have any timelines around when you would begin this work?
Yeah, I mean, that's really going to be determined by us getting through this process as far as getting the.
There's a button on the top.
You and that microphone, I'm
I
telling
know.
you.
That's really going to be determined by us getting through, obviously, this board, then planning board, building permits, DPW, as Mr. Freeland said. So I would say that we are probably at least 6 to 12 months out before we would be beginning work. I just want to add that the applicant and owner recognizes that this building is, an an anchor building. It's the first building you see besides the tax receiver's building as you enter into the village. So it's very important to them that this building looks visibly beautiful, and they are very active in, planning that with Mr. Marbillo, and would be obviously taking any comments from planning board and their recommendation if they want us to go to ARC or not. So the Perillo family has been in the village for many, many years, and takes pride in their ownership of buildings in the downtown area, and would certainly do the same for this, as they've always, tried to maintain it the best they could. And at this point are looking to repurpose it, beautify it, and make it, the best it could be as you enter the village and take a look around and see it when you approach.
Thank you for that.
Just hold on 1 second. Tom, I have one last question for you, if you wouldn't mind coming back up again. Let's go back to the floor area ratio.
Yes.
How does the village concur with the statement that Mr. Vito made earlier?
Yeah, as you can see, it's a minor addition they're putting onto the building. It's 0.07 that they're increasing the FAR by. De minimis, I think, was the term that Amy used before, and I would be in agreement with that.
Okay. All right, excellent. Does anybody have any more questions or comments? Oh, wait, hold on.
No more.
Any more on the board? Have any?
No.
That being said, now is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? Sure. I just need you to be sworn in, please.
You like 106 Tuffield Street or Jefferson? Hi. This location of this building is a very important spot. When you come down Main Street and you see it, you use the word hodgepodge. This building has been put through hodgepodge. Originally had a beautiful carved ship on top of it that was thrown into the dumpster. I believe the family that purchased it also purchased Grammis's, and Grammis's was taken down from your approval. I hope that it's going to be respected and brought back to some history and appreciated and respected as a historic building. And because, like I said, the position of it is just very important when you come down the main street and you see it. So hopefully you can come together with some decent design. That's it.
And Ms.
Thank
Marcelo,
you.
just for the record, this board, other than our inquiries and we don't have it, that's more of a planning board, but.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
it's, the applicant's here, so I'm sure he's here,
Right.
what you have to say, and.
Okay.
I'm sure he'll
Very
take it into
good.
consideration, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else like to speak on this application?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I am an attorney, John Huber, Balsam Schmidt and Huber. Here's a business card for you. If I may, I'd like to approach, I have a letter that I prepared, and I just wanted to hand copies of that up to the board. I have 4 copies I can give you. And I also have, I wasn't sure how much time I would have to speak.
Wait, I'll be a little.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it.
With the previous hearings, you know,
So I have 4 copies of my letter, one for each board member. I also prepared 2 summaries of my comments tonight.
can I just ask you a quick question? Are you representing someone?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm about to make my appearance.
Okay, sure, great.
How are you? Good evening, gentlemen.
Cindy will make this
thank you.
exhibit A or 1, whichever exhibit.
So my name is John Huber. I'm a partner with the law firm of Balsam Schmidt and Huber. Of course, I'm sorry. My name is John Huber, Huber. I'm a partner with the law firm of Balsam Schmidt and Huber with an office here in the village at the post office building, 407 East Main Street, Suite 11. My firm represents Colatasti Family LP, owner of the building where my office is located. We're identified on the Suffolk County tax map as parcel 206-12-10-3.3. It's the building just to the right on that aerial image that is on the east side of the alleyway that was indicated just moments ago. That abuts these properties at 415 and 417 East Main Street that are the subject of the application under appeal number ZB-0004-24. I'd like to begin by stating very clearly that Colatasti Family LP, which owns the post office building, is not opposed to the application. I'm here tonight basically to make the board aware of what we believe are many issues that must be resolved in the event you decided to approve the application. As I speak to you during our time together, I'll refer to this letter, copies of which I submitted moments ago. I submitted that initially to the zoning board back on April 15th, 2024, just a few days before this was originally scheduled for a hearing at that point, and the hearing that was scheduled was canceled at that time. It's unclear to me whether or to what extent this letter, which I first submitted nearly a year ago, has been made a part of the record for tonight, but I respectfully request that you do so as part of tonight's proceedings. And I'd like to incorporate that letter by reference in its entirety into the record, and I can summarize for you the salient points that I make in that letter. I'll emphasize for you the following details about the letter, which you'll see are highlighted in yellow and underlined in red. I wanted to really make it easy for the board to zero in on my comments. The letter's dated April 15, 2024, as set forth in the upper left corner on the first page. Although it's nearly a year old, it remains relevant insofar as the underlying issues have not changed since I first prepared it. Below the date on the letter is the Building and Planning Department's received stamp, which verifies that I did indeed submit it. Immediately below that in the regarding section references this application number, appeal number ZB-0004-24. The page numbers for each of the subsequent pages in the letter are in the upper left-hand corner of each page. Finally, the letter is organized by numbered paragraphs and subparagraphs. For example, you'll see on the first page we start with paragraph 1, subparagraph 1.1, with the next subparagraphs carrying over onto page 2. Paragraph 1 speaks for itself. I won't discuss that any further at this point, unless the board, of course, has questions. That said, my analysis of the letter starts with issues regarding lot status, and I'll begin at paragraph 2 at the bottom of page 2. To achieve its intents and purposes, the Perillo application inconspicuously portrays the premises at 415 East Main and 417 as a single property. Notwithstanding, as outlined under paragraph 1 in my letter, these are two separate and distinct Suffolk County tax map parcels, each of which is under separate ownership. It's not under common ownership. One is under an LLC with 417 in it, and the other building, 415, is under ownership under an LLC with 415 in the title. It's not under common ownership. Against that backdrop, I suggest the following issues require further investigation, and this is moving on to subparagraph 2.1.1 at the top of page 3 in my letter. Whether applicable codes, laws, ordinances, or regulations require that the subject properties be brought under common ownership and formally consolidated into a single parcel to effectuate the application's intents and purposes. Next, please refer to 2.1.2 and its subparts. Whether or not the application's intents and purposes can be lawfully effectuated without review by various village agencies, including the planning board, because this appears to be a de facto lot consolidation, even though an application hasn't been made, which is basically a reverse subdivision. So that's what we're doing here. This is a de facto lot consolidation. What does the Suffolk County Department of Health have to say about it? And what does the Suffolk County Real Property Tax Service Agency have to say about it insofar as this shows up on the Suffolk County tax map as two separate parcels? Moving on to paragraph 2.2 on the lower third of page 3 in my letter. Whether it was lawful for the village in 1984 under building permit number 1454 and any related CO, perhaps invalid, to allow these buildings, which are separate and distinct tax parcels, to be connected to each other across the property boundary that separates them. To the west side of the Fame and Rebel building, which is 415, if you go around to the rear of the building, you'll see that the second and third floors of these two buildings are actually physically connected across the property line that separates them. And whether or not that connection is to remain or is it to be expanded to effectuate the application's intents and purposes? Is this lawful without a lot consolidation? I'll next summarize for you issues regarding the floor area ratio variance. This analysis begins at the middle of page 4 in my letter. It requests a floor area variance ratio from the requirements that are set forth at Village Code Chapter 20, Attachment 2, which has a floor area ratio requirement of 2. Under the Village Code Section 250-9 definitions, FAR is defined as the floor area in square feet of all buildings on a lot divided by the area of such lot. This definition does not appear to contemplate the conglomeration of separate and distinct lots for FAR purposes, as does this application. Insofar as the application relates to 415 East Main Street and 417 East Main, two legally separate and distinct lots, the application appears to be impermissibly seeking a FAR variance to cover both lots. Proper procedure, therefore, would appear to suggest that 2 variances rather than the 1 are required. The reason this is significant is lot 415 is drastically of less square footage. So by conglomerating the lots for purposes of the application, it drops the floor area ratio down to 2.2. But if you did a floor area ratio calculation for lot for 415, you would see that the actual floor area ratio for that property is more around 2.6. And then you look at the floor area ratio for the 417, that's about more in line with the 2.2. So 417 East Main is really doing the heavy lifting for purposes of blurring the distinction between the floor area ratio that's required. Okay, moving on from that, I would like to address the lot area variance. This analysis begins at paragraph 4, about the quarter of a way down on page 5 of my letter. The application seeks a single lot area variance for the subject properties, where a proper procedure would appear to suggest that 2 such variances are required under these circumstances. This is because the 34,110 square foot or 85% area variance that's being requested is achieved by combining the 2 properties for a total square lot area of 5,889 square feet. But if you look at the individual properties, the lot variance that's required for 415, which only has 1,960 square feet, translates into a 95% variance, which by any definition is substantial under the relevant area variance criteria. And then likewise for 417, if you did not conglomerate the parcels, that has a 3,920 square foot, that's a 90% variance. So again, by conglomerating the parcels, 417 is doing the heavy lifting. Certainly, if these variances were granted, they would grossly exceed the insubstantial limitation that's imposed by the relevant area variance criteria. I'll next summarize issues regarding the Main Street frontage, and I'll be quick there. The application seeks a Main Street frontage variance from Village Code Section 250-18, paragraph F, 4, C2. This raises to me, a procedural and substantive question. I won't dwell on it except to state my letter summarizes this issue at paragraphs 5.1 through 5.4 on pages 6 and 7 of my letter. The essence of it is whether or not that's actually a use variance, because whether variance is sought should be a use rather than an area. That is, whether the use would result in a use in a land in a manner inconsistent with the basic character of the zone. A heavier burden is placed on an applicant for a use variance. We heard that in the first hearing tonight. And the ZBA will take judicial notice of the use variance criteria that are set forth at Village Code 250-41A. Assuming that turns out to be a non-issue for the board, paragraph 6 on pages 7 through 10 of my letter outline our analysis of the area variance criteria, and the board has to consider in its deliberations. And I won't spend any time on that except to refer the board there for our assessment of the application's merits. I'll next briefly summarize issues regarding existing site conditions. My analysis of these points begins at paragraph 7 near the top of my letter's page 10. The application has not yet and likely cannot satisfy the various conditional use or site development plan criteria for the planning board. Although some of these considerations regarding circulation and parking may not be directly subject to the ZBA's jurisdiction, they should inform the ZBA's deliberations, particularly within the context of area variance criteria regarding adverse community or neighborhood impact. These considerations are as follows, as enumerated at paragraphs 7.1 through 7.4 on pages 10 through 13 of my letter. Inability to provide sufficient adjacent or on-site parking. The application does not propose and cannot provide immediately adjacent or on-site parking in accordance with the express district use provisions under the ZBA's direct jurisdiction. Village Code Section 250-18, paragraph F4A, which requires parking for mixed occupancy buildings to be in an adjacent separate lot or in a reserved section on the parking on the property. I know from a procedural perspective that the Perillo application appears to be deficient in this respect. It does not, but almost certainly should request an area variance regarding the lack of available parking for the proposed mixed occupancy. Notwithstanding, if such a variance were added to the application, it might be denied insofar as it would require grossly substantial relief from the ZBA. That is to say, a complete exemption from the express parking.
Mr. Huber, I'm sorry, I'm not.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you staying the whole time. I know you're talking about parking, but
okay,
we're talking about something that may or may not happen. I know it's got to go to planning, and they may come back at some point. But
understood.
To talk about something that may, your point is taken in the fact
understood.
That,
Can I just bring it in for a landing
Sure,
then? I'll address the rest 100%. Of the points. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your patience. Next, at paragraph 7.2 on page 11 of my letter, the application cannot provide an adequate dumpster and dumpster enclosure and cannot explain how such a structure, even if viable, would be accessed, whether over Colatasti property or otherwise. Colatasti's position is that the garbage, rubbish, and refuse that would be generated by this building, mixed occupancy, would be voluminous, and the subject properties lack adequate ground space to accommodate that, and a dumpster enclosure cannot comply with the relevant provisions of Village Code Chapter 151, garbage, rubbish, and refuse. It's also unlikely that the dumpster or the enclosure of sufficient capacity could be located or accessed at this property without routinely disrupting, obstructing, or trespassing upon relevant portions of the Colatasti property or interfering with traffic on Main Street.
And again, Mr. Huber,
Okay.
although I understand your point,
Mhm.
it's really not, this board doesn't have any jurisdiction about that. That's really a subject you'd have to discuss with the planning.
Understood. Okay. Egress to the property. The subject properties 415, 417 have no lawful agreement, no access to the rear of the building. So they were talking about staging during construction. That was there's no way that such staging could occur because there's no way that that contractor could access the rear of this building.
And again, as you heard Mr. Freeling say, that would be something that the building inspector would work out with at the time of construction.
Understood. And to conclude, many of the issues I've discussed have been well documented by former village site planner Jennifer Sigler. In particular, Ms. Sigler's observations about the application are summarized at paragraph 8 of my letter, which is on pages 13 through 15. The entirety of Ms. Sigler's documentation is attached to my letter as exhibits 4 and 5. These are email exchange June 6, 2019 through July 9, 2019 with Heather Brin, architect, current or former application proponent. And then there are, and Ms. Sigler talks about parking in particular. PILOP does not apply to residential parking and mixed-use occupancies as specific parking requirements. I won't dwell on parking, Mr. Chairman. You've already been gracious about that. There's also an August 27, 2019 staff memo to the file which memorializes these issues. The buildings at 415 East Main and 417 East Main are connected on the second and third floor levels, although the properties have not been merged. On November 28, 2003, the owners of the properties failed to properly close out a planning board change of use conditional approval by failing to submit required documentation. No updated certificate of occupancy was applied for or issued. Departmental file lacks updated CO, final planning board approval for any prior uses, updated signed and sealed plans, elevations, and surveys for the property. Real property records indicate that the owners of 415 and 417 are not the same. Staff recommends that prior to accepting any further site plans, the aforementioned deficiencies should be redressed. Presently, the properties must be independently considered, Ms. Sigler's words. The 5/16/2019 pre-submission application to convert the second and third floors from office to apartment use considers the proposal as a single entity, although the properties are not merged and the owners are not the same. No easement agreement exists between the adjoining property to the east, the post office, and 415 East Main, Lot 1, while a driveway easement exists between the two. Too fast? Sure. Okay. Okay, I'm almost done.
We're almost there.
Yep, this is the end. No vehicular access to the rear of the building. So, in closing, we trust that the ZBA will fully explore all of these issues. That's why I provided my letter and also the summary. Thank you for being so patient with me. My final comment is that although I'm reasonably certain that if this is approved, it would set a questionable precedent that the board will need to distinguish and vigorously defend against during future applications for properties throughout the village. Thank you for your patience. I've enjoyed appearing before you.
Mr. Hubert, thank you. You've definitely brought a lot up. Hold on, Amy, for a second.
Mr. Huber, can I just ask you to clarify?
Yes, of
Hi,
course.
just 1 second. You started off by saying you don't oppose
Yes.
the proposals, you just want some due diligence done in regards to the proposals?
Well, my client and the Perillo family have had a cordial relationship for a very long time, since the Perillos own the property. My purpose here is not to be obstructionist. It's just to ensure that the board is aware of all the issues that I have outlined for you.
Okay.
and to really do our very best here to make sure that if this is approved, that this abutting parcel, the post office building, is vulnerable under these circumstances and that they are not adversely impacted by whatever is approved. Particularly the access through the rear. Colatasti family owns that entire paved, and we, as an applicant, went through an extensive planning board application process from 2015, and we received this updated certificate of occupancy just a few months ago. So it was many, many years and working very diligently and considerately with the village's representatives to come up with a win-win. And we just ask the board to be sensitive to these issues and please make sure that this is handled in a way that's considerate of the abutting properties.
Okay. Thank you
so
very much for clarification.
Amy, hold on one second. Andy, could you just come up for a minute? There's a question out there. The COs that are issued for that there are CO, according to the staff memo, there's COs issued. Are the COs issued to in 415 separately and 417? And I know you probably don't know the answers off the top of your head, but
That is correct. I do not know the answer off the top of my head. We'll have to research that.
because that's
Can we do some research? So that is one of the concerns. The concerns is that we have, in our staff memo, we've been provided a list of COs that have been issued dating back to 1976, but there's no indication as to whether or not these COs are been for individual use at 415 or 417, or were they just issued combined? Because that would have given the Perillos the idea that this can be a single freestanding building application versus two separate.
So
We just want to figure that out.
We will clarify that and amend the staff report.
Amy, do you have some response?
I think that most of Mr. Huber's concerns are really more planning board purview, but I will address a couple of the comments he made. Whether the COs were issued separately or individually, in my opinion, is irrelevant. This is a very easy fix, which we have always been prepared to do, which would be to merge the lots, consolidate them, file a new deed, wherein the properties are then effectively one. Suffolk County Health Department has never frowned upon making a non-conforming lot or lots into bringing them into more conformity. So there would be no issue with Suffolk County Health Department wastewater management. It would trickle down to real property by way of the deeds being recorded, and then it would be considered one lot with a new lot number designated. The properties are owned by two separate entities that are owned by the same people. So for all intents and purposes, these two lots are in fact owned by the same family. They are just not deeded alike at this point. The intent has always been to merge the properties. We just were never prepared to do that until we actually got in front of the boards and made sure that this is a project that would be viable and approved. Otherwise, merging the lots may not be in the applicant's best interest. But in my opinion, this is a very easy fix. It's something that I do all the time, not only with the Village of Port Jefferson, but with many different municipalities in Suffolk County. We often take lots that are separate, merge them, and make them buildable in other ways. I've even combined buildings before. So that to me is really a non-issue and a very easy fix. I do not think that has any bearing on this application today, unless the board sees fit to make the grant, if approved, contingent on the merger of the lots. We would be happy to accept that. This property is also located on sewers. So Suffolk County Health Department wastewater management would not get involved with this at all. They would only be concerned about, we would only be concerned about going to DPW for our proper S9 sewer permit. Proper S9 sewer permit. There is, just for the record, currently access inside the buildings. You can actually get from one building to the next on the second floor of the building. So there actually is interior access that exists, just for purposes of clarifying that question earlier. Also, this is definitely not a use variance. This is a conditional use under C1 zoning and would not fall into a use variance category. I'm not going to touch on parking, the dumpster, or construction staging because I believe we've already addressed the construction staging question with Mr. Freeling, and parking and the dumpster are not under the board's purview yet, and maybe not ever. The dumpster obviously would not be. That would be a planning issue. That's all I have to add.
Amy, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Although the properties are owned by the same different owners, same family, so to speak.
Correct.
Has he owned them at the same time, or did he buy one building and then buy one property? Does he know? He may not know. I don't know.
I'm going to ask Mr. Perla. He does not know. I don't have a copy of the deeds in the file to check, so I wouldn't be able to confirm. Most of the time when you buy a property, if they are two separate lot numbers, you do tend to buy them under two separate names because everybody always is concerned about merging properties because that could actually be something that is not beneficial if you're trying to do certain projects. In a case where if they were trying to improve these buildings as two separate buildings, that may not be beneficial, but that's not the case here. What we're trying to achieve is combining these buildings to make it one building. So all the variances before you today are actually accurate based on staff analysis and under the zoning code.
Amy, my feeling about this is that although we could vote on it, and if we did vote for affirmative and make contingent, I think Mr. Huber, raised a number of good questions, and I'd like to hear, number one, I'd like to clarify the CO issue, and I'd also like Jimmy Burke, who's our counsel, just to kind of comment. So
Of course.
I'm leaning towards holding the hearing open.
That's
right now,
fine.
and then wait to hear back from Jimmy Burke, unless anyone on the board or the board has a different opinion about that.
I think we need to also see a chain of title on those two distinct lots. At least take us through, when each building or each parcel was acquired.
Well, what would be the relevance of the chain of title? We could just give you the last deed of record.
The chairman's point, were they both acquired at the same time or were they staggered? Acquired.
But what's the relevance of that? That's what I'm trying to get at. Just so I know what we're, because to order a chain of title, there's an expense associated with that, so.
Well, why don't we do this? We'll defer to our counsel. If our counsel for some reason sees that's necessary, we'll go that way.
Absolutely.
Fair for everybody. I agree.
Yes.
I don't want to make your client have any undue, financial burden for.
Or at least the last deed to record.
Yeah, we could absolutely, we have those, so we could furnish you with those. That would not be a problem. I could send those to Mr. Freeling and Tom. That way they have them in their file if they don't already.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments for this?
Not at this time.
Just gonna ask the public one time. Is there anybody that'd like to speak on this? Hearing none and seeing none, I'm gonna make a motion that we hold open this hearing until we hear back from legal counsel and staff about the issues that we raised.
Just a quick question. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, are we reappearing or is this just going to be held open for more information and then decided on? Okay.
We're gonna hold it open for more information, unless something drastically changes or we,
You'll ask us to come back.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't see this at that point needing a really, unless there's a clarification or something. So I'm gonna make a motion that we hold open this hearing. We will have to, again, reopen it so I can close it officially. But there may not be, depending on what we find out from council and staff, so.
Okay.
All right. So
Perfect.
I've made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you for everyone.
Thank you.
For coming out, and I appreciate you staying for as long as you did. I thank you for being patient.
interested parties.
Can you just give me 1 second? Let me just give this. Thank you, number one, for staying.